Now, Balaram is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He knows that Krishna's undefeatable. He knows that whatever this asura must be is just Krishna's insignificant material energy. Later on, we read when Balaram saw Krishna in the coils of Kaliya, he said, I'm an Antashesha. I'm a bigger snake than this. Krishna never plays with me like this. This Kaliya is nothing but an insignificant little water snake. That's Balaram. But Bakasura, everything happened so sudden. At least he could, with Kaliya, Balaram could see Krishna. But suddenly Krishna was gone. He was inside the body of Bakasura. All the cowherd boys swooned and cried along with Balaram and fell to the ground unconscious. Krishna, who was in his throat, Baka's throat, he began to radiate his effulgence, the Brahmajyoti, and it was extremely hot. It was burning Bakasura's throat. And not only that, Krishna, he was playing. He was expanding himself gigantic in the throat, then contracting himself small, then expanding, then contracting and expanding and contracting. And meanwhile, he was burning hot. And Bakasura was like, he was in such pain. He was being tortured. He was screaming. He couldn't even scream because he couldn't get any air out of his throat. Krishna was going, and the heat. His heart was about to burst with pain. His eyes were bulging. And Bakasura was in such a state. With all his might, he was trying to spit Krishna out. And with his wings, he was jumping up and down, flapping as hard as he could, trying to get that inertia to spit Krishna out, but he couldn't get Krishna out. And by Krishna's own sweet will, he came out of Bakasura's beak. A great miracle. Because as he came out, all kinds of saliva and other stuff came out with him. But Krishna's clothes and his garland and his ornaments and his hair was just perfectly fresh. And there wasn't a single touch of any of the saliva or blood or vomit or anything else that was coming out along with him. And he started dancing. And Bakasura wanted to kill him, so he took his razor-sharp beak. And Krishna was dancing around as he was doing. And then he opened up his mouth again to try to crush Krishna with his beak. And meanwhile, all the gopas were watching this. You see, as long as he was in the mouth of Bakasura, the gopas were unconscious. But as soon as he came out, they came back to consciousness. Krishna effortlessly, with his little hands, he took one side of Baka's beak and another, and Srila Prabhupada said he bifurcated. Hare Krishna. And Bakasura was like two twin mountains laying next to each other. Krishna kind of ripped him up in half. Just like. And when that happened, all the demigods who were practically unconscious themselves during this ordeal, they collected chamuli flowers and jasmine flowers from the heavenly planets, the best flowers, and they were showering them upon Krishna. And the cowherd boys were clapping and jumping and saying, well done, and they were all coming and embracing Krishna, and Krishna was smiling. And when they all went back to Vrindavan that day, the Gopas were so excited. They couldn't stop talking about how Krishna killed Bakasura. And Yashoda Mai, the cowherd man and the gopis, they were astounded to hear it. But Yashoda Mai, she said to Krishna, Krishna, it just fills my heart with wonder that you're killing these demons. But we left Mahaban because of these demons. And it seems like wherever we go and wherever we take you, these demons attack. So Krishna, it's not safe for you. You're my child. You don't have to herd the calves or the cows. Actually, Nanda Maharaj has so many people. From now on, you will stay home with me, and I will protect you. I can't bear the thought of you going out there. And Krishna smiled at his mother, and he said, all these stories of my heroic deeds are all lies. There's never any demons that come into me. I'm going out to herd my calves. And Yashoda Mai, whatever makes you happy, my Krishna. Bakasura represents cunningness. One of the great obstacles to pure devotional service is duplicity. That cunning behavior, which means we put ourselves in the center of our lives. And once we put ourselves in the center of our lives and keep us there instead of Krishna and Seva, then the mind could justify anything. To be deceitful, to be untruthful, to even tell lies about others, to even be duplicitous and deceitful, to try to bring other people down, to hurt other people, to make my position stronger. This is cunningness. That tendency is the presence of Bakasura. Krishna has appeared within his name to rip that demon of Bakasura out of our heart. We are praying for pure devotional service. And we're crying to Krishna to free us from these anarthas as we chant his holy name. Lokanath Swami was doing his seva for Radha Vinod. And while living in that Kadiravan area, he received a message from Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Sanatana Goswami, that we are now here living in Vrindavan. Come Let us be together as brothers in the service of Lord Chaitanya. Lokanath Goswami, where the Radha Gokulananda temple is today, that's where he made his residence. At Radha Damodar temple later, after Jiva Goswami came, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Gopal Bhatt Goswami, Bhugarbha Goswami, they would all meet. They would have kirtan, Hari Katha, Seva. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked them to restore, excavate Vrindavan, so that people could come here on pilgrimage to exemplify the perfection of those in the renounced order of life, to establish temples and deities and the proper mood of worship, and to extract the essence from all the great scriptures. Unmotivated, uninterrupted, loving devotional service in the mood of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Not far from here is Chirghat. We were speaking about Lakshmi Devi. How she was aspiring to follow in the footsteps of the gopis. Srila Prabhupada explains the nature of the gopis' love. He especially quotes from Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami. Everything, their mind, their body, their words, was for Krishna's pleasure. And the gopis, understanding Krishna's inner desires, was reciprocating accordingly. Shukadeva Goswami, what was the exalted nature of his renunciation? We read how he remained within the womb of his mother for 12 years because he had no desire to come out into the world, because he had nothing to enjoy. The only reason anyone's born in this world is because we have a desire to enjoy material gratification. He was Brahman realized. He was so thoroughly self-satisfied, he didn't have to go anywhere. So he just stayed in the womb of his mother. Vyasadeva was chanting the glories of Krishna, and Krishna himself had to come to convince Sukadeva to come out. And we know the story when he was going from his home and Vyasadeva was following him. There were some ladies bathing without clothes in a lake. And when they saw Sukadeva Goswami, they just went on bathing. And when they saw Vyasadeva, they immediately got out and started covering themselves and were very much ashamed. And Vyasadeva said, "Why are you ashamed of me? I'm old enough to be your grandfather. Shukadeva is young, he's only 12 years old. Why are you ashamed when he's there?" They said, because he's Brahman realized. He makes no distinction between male and female. He doesn't see any of the dualities of the world. He's liberated. You are also, but because you're a grihasta, you have to make distinction. That was Sukadev's. And Shukadev Goswami, he praised, he exalted the gopis as the most highly pure, liberated of all souls. When Shukadev Goswami was 16 years old, he came into that great assembly where the greatest rishis, yogis, sages, gurus were together to be with Parikshit Maharaj, the emperor, for his last 7 days. Vishwamitra Muni, Vashishta Muni, Bhardraj Muni, Narada Muni, Vedavyas, Parasara Muni, they were all there. There were thousands of them. Every single liberated great soul in the universe was there at that time. Some of them were ageless. We read about them from other yugas, how they were great gurus. Vishwamitra was Ramchandra's guru. Vyasadeva is Vishnu himself. Narada Muni, the son of Brahma, is almost everybody's guru. But they all unanimously agreed that Shukadev Goswami is the most qualified to speak. And when Shukadev Goswami spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7 days, nobody left. All these great munis and rishis, they all sat in rapt attention. Hearing the nectar of Sukadeva Goswami's realizations. And he is glorifying the pure, spotless love of the gopis. The gopis wanted to exclusively dedicate their body, mind, words, and lives to Krishna. They wanted to love him and serve him as their husband. Vrinda Devi, she told them that you should worship the goddess Katyayani. During the winter month, from November, December, and she told them how to do it. They were to fast and eat only once a day rice cooked with mung dal, with no spice, no salt, no turmeric. And early in the morning, just before sunrise, they should rise and go together to the Yamuna and take their bath. Then they should make a murti out of the sand and the clay of Katyayani and worship her and pray to her to get Krishna as their husband. There's one energy of Krishna. But that one energy can manifest as Yogamaya or Mahamaya. Yogamaya is the spiritual energy that facilitates pastimes of love with Krishna. And Mahamaya is the material energy that covers our awareness of our own eternal soul and our relationship with Krishna. Mahamaya keeps us under the egoistic conception of I and mine. I am this body, and whatever is in relation to the body is mine. And our acharyas explain how Durga, or Katyayani, is the name of both the material energy when it's applied in that context, but also they are the names of Yogamaya. So it's not that the gopis were worshipping a demigoddess. They were worshipping Yogamaya, Krishna's eternal spiritual energy, because they were approaching her for pure unalloyed devotional service. Srila Prabhupada explains that even if a person worships a demigod, Prabhupada says, Narottam Das Thakur and others say there's no need. But if we worship a demigod for loving devotional service to Krishna, then that's perfect too. What Krishna discourages in the Bhagavad Gita is worshipping demigods for material, selfish purposes that keep us bound within the cycle of birth and death. But the gopis, because their intention was pure, their worship was perfect. They would hold hands together in the dark just before the sunrise. And they would be singing beautiful songs about Krishna. They were totally absorbed in Krishna 24 hours a day. And when they were together, it was the most beautiful experience for them because they could openly share their love for Krishna. Otherwise, at their homes, they had to kind of keep it to themselves. On our own little level, we should be like that too. That's the joy of being with devotees. Sometimes our congregation, you have to do work, you have to mix with so many social situations, and you have to kind of keep your enthusiasm for Krishna to yourself. But when we're with devotees, we could just freely talk about Krishna, sing about Krishna, encourage each other with Krishna. There's no great much chitamat gata parana, bodhyata paramparas. Krishna tells in Gita, Tesha nitya vayuktanam yogakshamam mahamyaham. Krishna carries what we lack, preserves what we have, but he tells that the devotees, their greatest joy is to be together, to glorify him and converse about him. One of the greatest tragedies is when we come to the association of devotees. It's probably taken us millions of births to have the association of devotees. And when we waste our time gossiping, talking about the faults of others, talking mundane, prajalpa, we could do that anywhere. Beauty and the glory of satsang, the association of devotees, is we could freely discuss Krishna. And we should really try to do that. We read Srila Prabhupada's books, we go to classes, discuss it with each other. Enlighten each other, enliven each other. The greatest service we can do for each other is bring each other closer to Krishna. That was the gopis. They would hold their hands, they would be dancing to the Yamuna, singing the glories of Krishna together, and each one was enthusing the others to sing with more and more love about Krishna. And when it came to the Yamuna, some of them would play venas, they would have kirtan, chanting Krishna's names and glories together. was the winter, they would remove their clothes and enter into Yamuna. It was very freezing cold. And they would stay in the Yamuna and chant beautiful prayers to the goddess Katyayani. And after coming out of Yamuna, they would get dressed. And some of the very artistic gopis would make a beautiful murti of Katyayani out of the clay and the sand. And Vrindadevi explained to them all the proper procedures of how to worship her. They would offer an asana to the goddess, a place to sit. And how many of you engage in deity worship? Please raise your hands. So you know the idam asanam. We offer, my dear Lord, please come and sit here. When the gopis would offer their asana to Katyayani, their prayer would be, dear goddess Katyayani, please bring Krishna to us. And then they would offer the padya, which is the washing of the feet of the deity. And as they would wash Katyayani's feet, they would pray, please give us shelter at Krishna's lotus feet. Then they would offer arghya, which is washing the hands of the worshipable object. And they would, as they would be washing her hands, they would say, please, goddess, give us the blessing to meet Krishna and offer our lives for his pleasure. They would offer achman, which is mouthwash. Please, let us taste Krishna's love. They'd offer madhupak, which is a very, very delicious yogurt, or dahi, and ghee, and milk, and honey. And as they'd be offering, please give us the blessing where Krishna will taste our love. Then they would offer achman again, the mouthwash. They would, goddess, here at idam achmaniyam, goddess Katyayani, give us the blessing that we will repeatedly giving our love for Krishna to taste and tasting his love. And then according to the procedures, they would take fragrant oil to massage the limbs of the goddess. And as they were massaging the limbs, they would pray, let all of our limbs be engaged in the loving service for Krishna's pleasure. Then they would have powder to remove the oil. And as they'd be sprinkling the powder and rubbing the powder, they would be praying, goddess Katyayani, please remove all our sorrows of separation from Krishna. Then they would do the abhishek. And as they would offer the abhishek, their prayer was, give us the blessing. We worship you with the prayer. Let us bathe always in Krishna's holy names and Krishna's holy pastimes and Krishna's loving service. Then they would offer clothes and ornaments. And they would pray, let us always ornament Krishna with our love. In this way, they worshipped absolutely with one desire. They'd offer incense. As they'd light the incense, they would be praying, please pacify our burning hearts by giving us shelter in Krishna's loving service. When they'd offer the lamb, illuminate our lives in the loving service of Lord Krishna. And at the end, after all the worship was complete, they offered a beautiful mantra that Brinda Devi gave them. O Yogamaya, O Mahamaya, O divine energy of the Absolute Supreme Lord, we offer our worship to you with only one desire. Bless us that Krishna be our husband. They performed this puja for 1 full month. Interestingly, their beauty was increasing every day. After each day, according to Jiva Goswami, they would take the goddess Katyayani and lovingly put her in the Yamuna. And the next day they would do the same thing again. But their worship was going more intensified, more elaborate as the time was passing. And then it was the last day. They woke up early in the morning, and Goddess Katyayani appeared to each of the gopis in their minds and smiled and said, "The good fortune that you are praying for, you will achieve today." So they were holding hands, singing Krishna's glories and names on their way to the river Yamuna with such happiness, with such anticipation. They took off their clothes and put them in the banks of the Yamuna and entered into the freezing waters. At that time, it was just after the sun rose. Krishna was with Balaram and the Gopas. They were herding the cows. And Krishna understood the hearts of these gopis. And he was thinking that let me make the bud of the gopis' hearts praying blossom into a beautiful flower today. So by his own inconceivable nature, he walked away from Balaram and all the cowherd boys, and they didn't even know he left. And he brought tiny little children with him, who were just 2-3 years old, little gopas. And these children, they didn't know what a girl or a boy was. They were so attached to Krishna that no matter what their parents said, they'd just go out every day and be with Krishna as he would herd the cows. So he went with a few of these little children to the place where the gopis were taking their bath, praying for Krishna. They didn't see him as he collected all of the clothes and climbed onto a kadamba tree. He was sitting on the tree. All the clothes were draped over the different branches. He was just watching and listening as they were singing Krishna's glories and singing Krishna's prayers. And then he spoke. First of all, it was time for them to come out. Even before he spoke, it was time for them to come out, and they looked on the riverbank, and they couldn't see their clothes. Their beautiful lotus-like eyes were gazing across the whole riverbank. Where have our clothes gone? How could they come out? It was very cold. Then Krishna spoke.